after 3 months of not getting your hair cut, everybody just wanted to go there. Because if you would have known from the beginning everything that comes and follows with the choice that you take and the challenges that come with it, maybe you would just have said, hey, should I really go that way or just take another easier way? And when you look back, you actually realize, you actually had no idea, but you somehow learned it along the way. Try and be ambitious, because if you don't even strive for something big, then you most certainly don't end up there, right? If you just think small all the time, you probably end up at a place that is something small.
I usually start the podcasts by trying to understand the person. And I usually go most of the times in the early stages of, your life in that case. So I would love to kind of dig deep or dig down into your early ages. Tell me a little bit about yourself, the young Tom Michels.
The young Tom, okay. I'm not sure if it's that exciting, but let's see. Born and raised in Luxembourg. I went to high school here in Luxembourg. Then I studied in Germany computer science and business. Did some a semester abroad in the States, and then basically, after university, sort of headed straight into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
About my younger self, I'm not sure what interesting things I could.
So, have you ever thought where this entrepreneurial spirit came from, or where the interest in tech came, and informatics, because that is what you went on to study?
I wouldn't say that it was clear from day one. If I look back, I think as a child I liked to build things, play with Lego and things like that. But then still, even during high school, I wasn't really sure what to do, where to go. I was thinking about engineering or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was a bit by chance that I discovered at the 12th grade computer science. And it was also sort of that building something from scratch, because you sort of start with an empty sheet, no code on it, right? And you can basically build a bit whatever you want. That then I really enjoyed it. It came rather easy to me compared to other topics or other subjects in school. And so I felt, okay, if this comes easier to you than other topics, maybe that's what you should pursue. But before that, it wasn't really clear to me that this is maybe something that I would like to do later on.
And how about the entrepreneurial mind and mindset? Do you recognize that somewhere within like your environment, your parents, or is it just simply that you liked to do Lego?
I think as a child, maybe it wasn't really that clear. Entrepreneurship wasn't really that on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I just was a bit, like running around, didn't really know where to go, what to do. And then I think over the course of high school, that I don't really know where it's come from. It sort of was like, okay, talking with some friends, a good friend of mine, okay, at one day, maybe you want to create a business. Mm-hmm. We don't know what it will be, but we would want to do that one day. And then over time, university, I think I had a bit that curiosity to see what stuff can be done, trying to find classes that would actually also interest me and not just take the ones where you get best grades, because in Germany, right, you can pick a lot of classes yourself. And
okay.
They choose the ones that are the easiest to get good grades, but you can also choose some that are maybe just more of your interest. So I was really trying to find something that I like. And then over time, which was also nice, that on university, this whole entrepreneurship started up, creating something topic came up more and more, and there were things that you could sort of get more information, and I enjoyed that. And then it was more by chance, sort of, that we faced a problem, and in personal life, the need to say, okay, why can you not book certain things online? And then basically straight out of university, we said, hey, let's just build that, because it doesn't seem to exist yet.
Mm-hmm. So you said one thing that I'm very curious about. You said that entrepreneurship, and you correct me if I'm wrong, became a little bit more mainstream because you could research more things.
Yeah, I guess the topic by itself became a bit more popular over the years, and when I was at university than maybe when I was at high school, or maybe I was just also not aware of it that much. But I felt like the environment around me was also getting more or talking more about it, and it sort of opened a bit my view on what else is outside of just school and regular classes. During my studies, at least at the beginning, I thought more about getting into the consultancy sort of business, like consultancy in the sense it would be a mix between then computer science and business, because I liked a bit mixing those two worlds, not just coding from the morning to the evening, although I also like to code, but that mix, I found it interesting that you can sort of apply that also to the business world. And I think that was something that proved also valuable later on, because then you can a bit understand both worlds. If you then start a company, you can understand the business part, but you can also manage on the tech side.
So you said you found a problem. And, well, I'll let you tell me the story. You found a problem. How did it come from finding a problem to then thinking about it, and then it became a tangible thing? Because you did not have any work experience, as of what I know, and you went straight from university to, well, creating a company.
Yeah.
So what's the thought process there?
Yeah, I mean, so during university, then this entrepreneurship and startup became more and more interesting for me, and then at some point the problem, it's maybe a first world problem, but what we sort of found that, okay, why do you have to call to book a hairdresser appointment? That was basically, why can you not book your barbershop online? That's sort of how it all started, right? At the university, you do everything online. You buy stuff on Amazon, you buy your pizza online, whatever it is online. And here I was, say, okay, why do I still have to call to get my appointment? That seems quite old school, and why is there no solution to that? So that's how it all started, and then we okay, why don't we just develop something ourselves? So I was talking with a couple of friends, and since I also had then a bit of IT background, I sort of had a rough idea, okay, we could just start coding, and then we'll see where it goes, right? And then we very quickly also said, okay, but none of us really is from that industry, right? We don't have any hairdressers in our founding team or anything. We just said, okay, we have no idea how their business actually works. We just know from the consumer side that you want to search for salons, you want to maybe see their services, and you want to book it in a couple clicks. And that's sort of how it all started.
So you founded this with another 4 people. Did everyone go all in? Did everyone straight away went into the project all in, or how was like the whole process of like, okay, this is an idea, starting coding? What was like the time frame, and not like the nitty-gritty details, but because I believe, I mean, like, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I've been in this entrepreneurship route myself for a year, and it's not that easy. So how was the thought process in regards to, okay, I have this idea, I'm trying to code something. When was the moment where you said, okay, this is something that could go right?
Yeah. So I think, I mean, it was at the last year of my master studies where we sort of had that idea more concretely, and we really decided, okay, let's go for it. So how did it look like in concrete ways? Meaning, I finished my studies. We were already coding a bit on the side on that project. So when I should have been writing my master thesis, I was basically working on other stuff, but still it worked out well at the end. But then indeed, as 5 co-founders, we're like, okay, how do we do it? Not every co-founder knows how to code. And it's tough to sell something if you don't even have maybe a basic prototype, right? So everybody who could code, which was basically me and then our CTO who was studying with me together, we said, okay, we will code it. We will try to get a first prototype out. We will try to talk to Salons to understand their needs and see how it also works, not just on the consumer side, but on the business side, because both have to be interconnected. And then the others were more like, okay, let's see where it goes. We can help wherever we can, but we cannot sell or do anything else unless there's some initial sort of prototype that we can go to salons with, right? So at the end of then my studies, we were still working a bit on the prototype. We were talking to some salons, and I was like, okay, either I get a job now and this whole thing takes more time. I do it on the side, right? I work my 9 to 5, and then when I come home, I still code a bit. Or I would just say I go sort of all in, even of course you have some security or cushion to fall back on. But I say, okay, I just do it full time, and let's see where it goes, right? And I think the nice thing of doing it immediately after university is that you don't have that many obligations. You are maybe also used to live on a tighter budget. You haven't had any big salary yet. You don't have any big loan maybe to pay back, right?
Yeah.
So just say, okay, let's see where it goes. You have some savings that you can live on for a couple months, and then you just see what happens. And that's a bit how it went. So the others got some jobs, and they said, I'm taking a job now, but I plan to go also full time as soon as I can. And then over time, we built up first product. We sold it to the first salons. And then we said, okay, it's working, but you have to get some quantity to really say you can live off it or really get bigger traction. So actually on the side, then we were selling websites as a completely different kind of company. We had a second web agency. We were selling websites to sort of keep us afloat while we were growing a Salonkee, actually. And then there was that one point where I said, okay, now I think we proved that what we are doing works and there's a market for it. And that's where we also said, okay, let's go and raise some funds to really make it big, because that's what really helps accelerate, is that we have more sales on the ground. And to have more sales, you need more money, unless you would say you grow it organically, but then it's just slower, right? And that's so in January 2019, where I said, okay, let's go raise some funds. Let's go outside of Luxembourg. Let's accelerate in Luxembourg. And let's really try and make it as big as it can get.
Did you have any doubts that it wouldn't work?
Yeah, I mean, at the beginning, you don't know, right? And that was really also, we were not even talking about a company in the beginning. It was just a project, and let's see where it goes. I mean, you don't know, and I think you cannot say I know it for sure, because you start and you'll see you have to figure stuff out. So of course you're like, hey, let's try and let's see what happens. And then I was like, okay, I'll try it for 6 months, and then after that, I'll see if I sort of make a cut or I keep going. And after 6 months, that was a year at the end, then it was 2 years, and then okay, and sort of at some point you say, okay, this is what I want to do and keep doing.
You took the approach, okay, 6 months, then it turned out into a year. So it was working, probably also because like you were selling websites on the side. I guess that was you and your CTO.
No, it was actually one of our third co-founders. So he was not really coding, but he was sort of building up WordPress websites and things like that, right? So it was enough to sort of help randomly small businesses get a website, get online. And so we built that on the side. And so he was then helping with that while CTO was coding. I was coding a bit, and he was selling some websites, and that's sort of like we scrambled it together.
Do you ever have any kind of like doubts, or like how did you manage? I feel like entrepreneurship is a lot like a game with oneself, like with your own mind. And yes, we can work towards a project, we can work towards our KPIs, our goals, but there's always one person that can be the biggest obstacle to all of that, which is ourselves, our thoughts, our anxiety. I'm wondering if you have any of those kind of thoughts as a person and as a CEO now.
I would say, I mean, it's indeed a lot. I think the mindset is key, and you sort of have to just a bit, I think, blindly believe in what you do to keep going. You don't know where it will end up, but I think if you are too pessimistic about things, you probably end up maybe not pursuing things and just trying to take a safer route. But I guess as an entrepreneur, when you start a new thing, you have to take risks. You don't know where you're going. and you just have to believe that it will somehow work out at the end, right? You don't really know, and there's always, of course, challenges and maybe doubts about, okay, will this work or will this not work? But I think then that, at least I try to say, okay, it's like an experiment. You try it. It's not a doubt about then myself personally that I say, okay, how would I say this?
Detached from like what is.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, is this? I think that I have some base of belief that, okay, somehow we'll make it work. We'll try things. If they don't work, we'll try other things, right? And then we'll see where it goes. Maybe if everything fails, or at the beginning, at least, okay, you have some cushion to fall back on, and you can still get a job, right? So I guess it's still a fortunate situation compared maybe to other people that, I don't know, grew up in a country that is poorer or that did not have the chance to get a university diploma or something like that. Whereas here it's like, okay, if that thing doesn't work, you can still do something else, right? It's not the end of the world. Of course, today it's different. The company is much bigger. We are close to 60 people now. So it's not an option more to say just it didn't work and I do something else, because you're sort of responsible for 60 people that work together with you on that project. But then, of course, everything else is a bit, I would say, a bit more stable in the sense when you start, you just don't know where you go. Today, you know, everything is a bit more predictable.
Mm-hmm.
But then still, there's a ton of things that you don't know when you try to figure out, and then you do it along the way. I think you really have to embrace that you don't know it, and you'll just try, learn from it.
Cool. That's called the growth mindset.
Yeah, I think and that's what startups are all about, right? Is also about growth, and then is, I guess, personal growth and growth of the business at the same time.
Yeah.
If I look back at the Tom of, I don't know, 3 years ago and today, I mean, with all the stuff that I didn't know that we figured out along the way, at the beginning you just don't know, but then still I think we started, and then you learn a lot along the way.
Would you say you've changed as a person?
I think so. I hope in a good way, but I think, it really shapes you. You learn a lot of stuff. I think my core character traits, I hope so, didn't change in a negative way, at least. So I think that's still the same, but then everything else, business related and how to approach things, how to manage risks or whatever it would be, anxiety or challenges, all that, I think you learn over time to get better at those things by doing it, basically, because I think it's hard to learn it just in theory. You just have to jump in, do it, and then you learn along the way. You have to embrace that you don't know and that it's fine and that you'll figure it out.
Yeah, and entrepreneurship is all about finding something, learning something, and applying it straight away.
Yeah.
And I think you said that as well in the interview with
House of Startups.
House of Startups, that's the name. House of Startups. That you learned way more in a year or two than at university.
Yes.
And I think it's also the fact that I don't think it's just goes with entrepreneurs, but also, and I'm not saying university is shit or whatever, but the fact of just going to work, like I did a finance degree, investment degree, and in 6 months of that work, I learned way more than in a year, because as I was learning, you are applying straight away. And I think that's the beauty in whatever. If you start out as an entrepreneur or you start out like as a job, whatever you do, you will always learn more.
Yeah, I mean I agree, and this the one joke I always share with one of my good friends, that we say university, it's like an entry ticket to the working world in a sense. But that's like when you're not at university, or when I was at high school, you feel like, okay, wow, university, I will learn so much, right? It will be so easy to apply that knowledge somewhere else. But at the end, you leave university and like, okay, that was 5 years, and do I really know that much more now than before? I think university shapes you in a sense that how do you independently maybe get your work done, you're on your own, how to connect maybe with other people, work on projects. So all that, I think it helps you shape your mind, think maybe about complex situations in a different way. But at least also for me personally, and even though I think computer science is quite practical, not always, depends on the classes, but quite practical in some things, you learn it afterwards when you get a job. So with the university, for me, I also wouldn't say it's crap, but it's not that you say you're a smarter person because you've learned something at university. I mean, you learn it through experience, I would say, afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that, because I myself am, like, I know how to code, it's my previous job experience, do you think that coding has helped you kind of shape how you think? Because there is this very specific way coders think, right? Mm-hmm. You can't code anything. You have the ifs, you have the for loops, you have all these different things, and you have all these different classes. You organize it. So it's very organized kind of skill to apply onto a program. And it's also, you are kind of always, as you said before, you are solving a problem every single time you code. So I'm wondering if that has ever shaped you in the way you think.
I haven't intentionally thought about it, but now that you say it, I think it might have, because at the end when you code something, at least how I look at it is like you start with a sort of big problem and you cut it down into more and more detailed pieces, right? Because at the end, a program or what you code is basically very simple commands, but if you put them all together in the right way, it gets a very complex program, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think the same way, if you have a complex program, complex problem, and then probably then unintentionally more than intentionally, I would say, okay, what are the core problems? And you decompose into smaller pieces, and then you realize actually, okay, how can you solve it? Because it gets not one big problem, but maybe a lot of smaller pieces that you can solve independently. Mm-hmm. So I think that might help. But then on the other side, I would also say, like, coding is very unemotional, right? The computer just does what you tell it to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very, there's one skill set where you say, okay, I tell the computer what to do, he does it, and you don't think about emotions. But then as soon as you go more to the people side of business, and if you create a business, it's not just you and a computer, but it's a lot of people around you. There, I think then it's a completely different skill set. The whole people management, emotions that are involved, everything that comes with it, coding doesn't really help you much.
So how are you in regards to those skills?
I guess that's for my team to define. I mean, I don't know. I hope I'm doing, I serve them well, but...
what kind of boss are you, if I ask you? Like, blunt, the first answer that comes into your head. How, if you would look at yourself from a third-eye perspective, how would you describe yourself as a boss? Because you had to learn all of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I try to be quite reasonable and unemotional about things that might trigger emotion. So I try to be very factual, yet I try to really understand also the emotion of the other side. If there would be conflicts to solve or whatever, I think it's always humans involved. So it's not just as if you would code and if I say A, the person does A, or if B does B, right? So with humans, it's different. And I think, I mean, what I really don't like, and it's part of our company culture, and I think everybody of our management doesn't do it, is this sort of bossy top-down attitude. I think that's really something that you don't see at Salonkee, and I think that's also something that our team enjoys and like, and it's a young team, and they all look for some purpose, something to build, and join for a bigger mission, and not just get a job 9 to 5 and leave, right? And so I think that's really what drives everybody, and it sort of also helps to not needing or being bossy, because people like what they do and they want to contribute to the bigger mission.
Mm-hmm. They find quote unquote purpose or like mission that they agree with.
I hope so. I mean, we try to communicate it quite clearly, although communication is also always something that I know we can do better, and it gets more and more important the bigger you get. But we try to communicate our values very clearly in every job interview, even before we have them on the website. What do we stand for? What people do we want the company to join? How are the people that are working at that company? Can you identify with that? Can you identify with the mission of what we want to do? And then hopefully you can identify with that, and it gives you some purpose. And that is more than just a regular job that you do to get a salary, but that is something that you really want to contribute to. And I think that in general, in maybe a startup environment, is that you see your impact much faster than in a bigger corporation. So if you're 1 out of 3,000 employees, your impact is probably a lot smaller than if you're maybe 1 on 20 or 1 on 50 employees, right? And so for the developers, it's about shipping new features that are being used by the salons every day, and for the HR team, it's about new people joining the company every month and training them and seeing them grow the company, right? So there's basically every department, I think, sees the impact very quickly that they can have.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that keeps people going also.
You talked about company values. What are the company values?
There's, I think, 8 in total on the web page. I mean, there's one that seems to be sticking with everybody, because it's the one that after every interview, people say, oh, I saw this on the website and I liked it. And that one is, we say it's an asshole-free environment.
Nice.
So it's a very easy one, right? It seems obvious, but then still I mean, I guess it's not the case everywhere. And we really try to be sensitive and aware of the people that work at the company. And it's not just about the hard skills and the work that you do,
mm-hmm.
but it's also about how you work together with your colleagues, the soft skills, how you treat them, how you interact with the whole company. And everybody should be aware that we don't tolerate just high-performing people if they are assholes, in a sense. And that's a bit how that one came to life. And I think it's like, sometimes when we have new joiners, after some time they say, yeah, it's weird but so cool that somehow all the people in the company, it feels like it's different people, but somehow they still fit together very well. And to be honest, I'm not 100% sure where that feeling exactly comes from or what it is, but it seems like those people attract other people again, and then the values also attract the right people that they really enjoy working together.
How much does these company values fit in with your personal values?
I mean, they have to be aligned, of course, right? We cannot, and there's also an important thing. We don't say, okay, we have some values written down somewhere for marketing purposes, and then when you join the company, you realize that they're not lived by, because then they don't have any purpose, right?
Mm.
So it's something that we as the founders all very clearly said, okay, this is something everybody believes in, lives, and that we want the company to strive and aim for, and aim everybody at the company to strive for those. So those are very aligned. I think otherwise it wouldn't make sense to have them.
So essentially you created a company that you wanted to work with in.
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think we try to be our best selves, and we try to be then maybe the boss, in the sense that you would want to have for yourself. Yeah.
I love that. Okay, before I go to this one question that I'm really intrigued by, I just wonder, how's your work-life balance? Because it is something, again, like a lot of people underestimate the kind of work that comes into mind as in this journey.
I mean, it's, how would I say it? I think work-life balance, often it sounds like, okay, like work would be the more negative thing, and you balance it maybe with the rest of your life, which is then a positive thing, and you have to find a balance.
Nicely explained.
I don't really think about it that way, because I really enjoy what I do. I love what I do. So it's also there's no real border, and so this is work and this is life, because a big part of my life is the work, because we work a lot on company. If you go into hours, it's certainly more than 8 hours a day. Might be a 12 one day, might be 14 another day, might be 10 another day, right? But it's certainly not a 9-to-5 job.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't feel like I'd be working too much, or that I don't have enough balance with the rest of my life or something, because it is just such a big part of my life that I really just enjoy doing, right? Mm-hmm. So it's just, okay, I work, I like it, and I go out with friends and I like it. And of course, I mean, it's not all of life is about work, but a very, very big portion of my life, work takes a very big part in that, right? And then, of course, like at work, you also have friends. I get along really well with the team. So it's not also just like saying, okay, I have to wait until 5 and then I can leave and then my real life sort of starts, right? This very, the borders are very fluid, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything that's like, I think like for me personally, as I am on a slightly different but similar journey in regards to entrepreneurship, I feel like I need to have some like time where I get to do the things just for me, where I'm not interacting with anyone else, where I'm just like taking care of me. Some like people have their care days. Do you have anything like that where you take refuge in? It's not a refuge because you like and you love what you do, but it's sort of a way to recharge, to get even more done or more fulfilled in a sense.
I mean, I'd say nothing fixed in my schedule where I say I do that once a week or an evening or whatever. I think, I mean, one, I have maybe it's, I would say good or bad, it's not for me to say, but that maybe bad habit of working late in the evenings.
I'm like that too, don't worry.
Quite regularly. And I think one thing that I enjoy about that is you're sort of in your bubble or tunnel and it's quiet, there's no phone ringing, no emails coming in, nothing, right? And you basically get stuff done. And sometimes maybe even I'm then not working but doing other stuff, but then it's sort of a quiet moment in the sense that it's just you and you can basically do whatever you want. But I'm not like saying, okay, I need to go on trips or holidays to recharge my batteries. To be honest, sometimes, I mean, I'd say, you need some holiday and some break, that helps. But I don't feel like, oh, when is the next holiday? I need to recharge my batteries. Not really. Sometimes holiday, I must admit, even stress me a bit more than they would help me recharge, because then I know, okay, during that time, I will get less done and I still have like the world outside keeps going, so I'll have more emails to answer or more stuff to do when I'm back, or I try to read before I leave. So definitely, I would say the period before and after the holiday are more stressful, and then of course in the holiday you try to relax a bit, but then still like there's no clean cut, I would say.
How do you deal with that? Because I have the similar problem. Like when I don't get my stuff done, I'm stressing out, because I want to get it done, and like obviously there's something in between that is hindering me from doing it. I'm supposed to do something else. Have you figured something out? And I'm basically just asking selfishly so that I can get it done as well and understand and manage it as well.
I think it's a lot about just then prioritizing, seeing what's really the most important one, not what is the most easy one to get done, but what's the most important one to get done. If it's really small things, I tend to try and do it right away, so I don't forget about it. Like if it takes me a minute to do it, and it's an email I need to send, I just send it, then it's off the list. If it's multiple big things, I try to really prioritize and see what's really having the biggest impact, and then I try to do that first. Yeah, but I think there's no evening where it goes, I go to bed and I feel like there's nothing on my list, everything is done, right? That basically never happens.
Yeah, I get it. If I say to you, I wish I had known that before I started, what is the first thing that pops into your mind?
I think it might not be the answer you're looking for, but I think it's good that I didn't know a lot when I started. From what I know today, I mean, there's certainly things that say, okay, you could have maybe avoided one misstep here or there. But when I look back and I sort of smile at how naively we were all as the 5 co-founders when we started our journey, and how we thought how easy it might be, or how somehow it will just magically work out. I think that naive way of thinking was just one of the main reasons to just get started. Because if you would have known from the beginning everything that comes and follows with the choice that you take and the challenges that come with it, maybe you would just have said, hey, should I really go that way or just take another easier way? Whereas today, of course, I would never go back, and I love what I do, and I did the choice. But at that moment in time, it wasn't clear, and you just say, okay, let's try, let's figure it out, and let's just get started.
Do you still have this naivety kind of mindset? Because it's, as you said before, it's much more predictable right now.
I guess maybe in 3 years when I look back again, I think, wow, all the stuff I didn't know 3 years ago and how naive I was. I think at that moment you don't realize it, because also at that moment when we started, we didn't realize. We thought that we still know what we're doing somehow, although we say there's a lot we don't know. We sort of had that feeling like, yeah, I mean, we're so smart to figure it out somehow, right? And you feel confident, because if you don't feel some confidence, you have some confidence in what you do, I guess you don't get started, and you look for something that might be, I don't know, maybe a bit less risky, or keeping you more in a comfort zone, whereas here you sort of have to be willing to get out of the comfort zone. And you think that you will just make it work even if you have no idea. And then when you look back, you actually realize, yeah, you actually had no idea, but you somehow learned it along the way. And I think that open mindset really helps.
I feel like you've mentioned this word a few times, and I think it's something to point out, because it's probably the most important part of your journey. At least that's from my perspective of looking at it, and it's belief.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you don't know where you will end up with. You know where you want to get, and you try and get there, and sort of you make everything aligned like to get there. But then it is still very unpredictable, and it gets a bit more predictable the bigger you get. Today, okay, we know how many sales we have on the field, how many contracts can they sign in a month, how many will that be in a year, what will be the revenue, what will be the cost, right? So you can financially at least predict your situation way better, because you have some data to look back on. Whereas when you start, you just don't know, will anybody be willing to pay for it? Is there a market for it, right? And those are things you don't know. And I think the earlier you try and find out the answers, the better it is to find the right direction, because it's a typical thing that they always say in the startup sort of world, is that product market fit, where you try and get that fit. Because if you just develop something 2 years in a garage and you find out nobody really needs it or wants it, then you lost 2 years just building something nobody really needs, right? But yeah, I think you have to believe in the mission and in what you do, and then the rest you'll adjust along the way.
How did because you've started in 2019?
Yes, we started before. 2019 is when we raised our seed round. So that was 1 million euros to expand that internationally. By that, we already have around 80 customers in Luxembourg using it. But we started, I think the first paying customer was sometime in 2017. But that was really early days, right? It was very rudimentary system. It worked. It was just an agenda and a platform to book online. And then, since we were sort of really in that bootstrap mindset, selling websites aside, it was not moving as fast as it could, because you just had to try and keep it afloat, small team, right? And then as soon as we raised our seed round, then things really started to accelerate. I mean, that day, basically everybody came full-time from the founders. Other people joined the company. We opened office abroad, and then really things started to accelerate.
So the reason why I asked is because there is 1 year where the world ended up being still. And how did that affect Salonkee?
Yeah, I mean, that's something we didn't see coming, of course, right?
Exactly.
And I mean, for us as a company itself, I would say we're quite digital and young people. So, right, working from home for us by itself was not a big problem. Everybody has a laptop and knew how to get stuff done. The problem was, more for us, the challenge is that our customers were highly impacted by it, meaning that salons had to close for months. In Luxembourg, I think it was just 2 or 3 months. It was the longest lockdown. In other countries, it was like 5 months. And then, of course, you're like, okay, like if they are closed and you sell basically a tool to them, which is much more today than online booking, right? It's a whole tool to manage their business. It's about accounting, managing employees. It's about the payments, in-store payments, online payments, reports, CRM functions. Right? It's a whole, basically what we sell to salons today is a whole system to manage their business. And then you're like, okay, if their business is closed, like what's our tool actually worth? And do they keep paying for it if they don't use it? And can we sort of help them even in a lockdown with some digital tools to sort of stay afloat? And we just tried to adjust to it as quickly as we could. I know still quite vividly that it was maybe a week after lockdown, okay, what are we going to do? And what if we can sort of help salons sell vouchers online to get some revenue, right? I think that was something that you heard it from other maybe shops or stores. Okay, you can support the local businesses. That was, I think, during the first lockdown, at least a very prominent thing, like support your local business, buy something here, order something there, right? And then it's okay, hey, let's just, as quickly as we can, code together, or sort of was more like hack together one solution where you can buy a voucher online at the hairdresser that you can use after the reopening. Because there's no use when they're closed, of course, but you help them in sort of giving them it's like a small credit, right? You give them the money now and they give you the service later. And that's a bit how we started. We said, okay, let's build that. And then what else could we build? We had on our roadmap some plans to build a newsletter tool and keeping in touch with customers or communicating. And we just reprioritized the whole list. We said, okay, this is something they could use now, because then we started salons asking us, hey, actually I'm selling products or shampoo even in lockdowns, but how can I reach out to my customers, right? I have them, I have the email, but I don't really have a tool. They don't know what MailChimp is, how to use that or whatever. So it's okay, hey, let's build them a newsletter tool where they just can tell to their customers, do you need anything in your maybe 1 month or 2 month lockdown? You cannot buy the shampoo that you used to buy at your hairdresser. And then we build up that, and sort of we try to add value even during a lockdown, and then that turned out to work. And then, of course, the online booking part for the reopening was massively helpful. I mean, I know it, and it happened the same in every country. The moment the government announced that hairdressers would open is the moment I was sweating that our servers would crash, because it seems like everybody was just waiting to get their haircut done somehow. And I guess nobody felt a hairdresser that important. And then somehow, after 3 months of not getting your hair cut, everybody just wanted to go there, right? And then all the salons that then were working with online bookings, of course, they had their agendas filled for the next week or two when they opened the salon. And I think that really proved them then very helpful to get through that period.
I guess you managed really well to add value throughout current,
I mean, the value was certainly lower than when they are open. And then, of course, reopening was a very high value impact for them. But then, of course, if you are like a lockdown for 4 or 5 months, it was, I think, very tough still for them. And then you try to support them as much as you can. But it was certainly something that sort of, it was a tough situation for them and for us still. If I look back, I think not having it would have been much easier, right?
Yeah, I understand. I have one last question, which I just try to not understand, but really try to reflect on who you are based on everything that you said. And I kind of have an idea of who you are right now. Okay, we had a conversation before the podcast, we have a conversation now. And I kind of have this idea already. But I'm wondering, how do you define yourself? Who is Tom for you?
I'd say I mean, I don't know. It's a hard question. I'd say I like to build something. I like to operate in a sort of open environment where stuff is to be figured out, and we're not just operating in a small box doing the same thing every day. I like it when there's new challenges to be solved. To be passionate about the things. I think I really enjoy what I do. I'm really passionate about it and about bringing new people to the company, providing also then a work environment that they like to come and work for, inspire them and build something together. So that's something I really enjoy professionally, privately. I don't know. I like to hang out with my friends and enjoy time with them, and enjoy time with my girlfriend. I'd say I'm not maybe the most, how would I say? Yeah, no, I mean, I just, yeah, I like time with my friends, and then the time at work and having a purpose, and working for something big. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I'm not sure if you would describe me this the same way. I mean, happy to.
That's somehow, yeah.
Somehow. Okay.
Yeah, it would be. I feel like you, in some way, you are an example, and in some way, you are like just a normal guy, you know. But with the fact that you're passionate about creating and building and solving issues and providing for a company. I mean, you know, like we have all these ideas that entrepreneurs are pedestal, or CEOs on the pedestal, or influencers are on the pedestal, and creators on the pedestal. We are all normal. Yeah. And that was the purpose of this question. That was the purpose, to basically like, hey, anyone, like if that fits within your skills and you want to do it, you have a caution to go on, and still you remain the same person. That's really what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. And you always, as you say, you might think of people on a pedestal and far away and not reachable for you. But at the end, then when you have a chance to maybe talk to a person that you thought was on a pedestal or whatever, you just realize it's also just a regular person. And everybody tries to figure stuff out, and don't always maybe know the answers to everything. And yeah, I think it's just about starting something, doing something, following it, believing then a bit, as you said, also like believing in what you do, and the rest you'll figure it out. But everybody's like, there's no superhuman, I don't know, trait that you can have and that makes you different from the rest, right?
I love that answer. And usually, like this, just the way you answered it, you know, like this would be the perfect segment to end the podcast and finish it off. But I still have 3 fast questions for you.
Yes.
Okay. So the first question is, what is the worst advice that you have ever been given?
I mean, one thing, probably not the worst, but one thing I sort of figured out along the way is that in the early days of a startup, I mean, you have 2 things. You have some people that might discourage you in not doing it because they say, why don't you get a job at the government or whatever? It's a safer place, right? Whatever. There's that kind of or those kind of people that maybe try and discourage you in doing it, because maybe they generally believe that it's better for you to not do it because it might be too difficult. I think that's some advice that you might want to ignore then, right? Because then otherwise you would never get started, and then just take something that you might not be passionate about and then regret it much later on, where it might also then be tougher to change directions. And then, I mean, concretely also what I realized over time on the business side is like, you have some, whatever it will, business coaches or other people that might have some experience in some part, or maybe not exactly in your industry, that generally want and try and give you advice. But it doesn't mean that that advice is correct. It can be, but it can also not be, because like every sort of industry is different, every company is different, and there's no magic solution that I've done it now for one industry and you can apply the same thing for another industry, right? So even there, I think, and without now going into details, this advice that we got, that we said, this is how we should do it. And we said, okay, is this really the way? And we don't know. And today, when I look back at it, it was exactly not what we should have done, because it would not have worked for various reasons. So I think it's good to strive for advice and feedback, especially. But at the end, that doesn't mean that is just by default the right answer, because you get it from somewhere else. And even if he acts as if he would know, it doesn't really mean that it is the right answer necessarily.
Next question is, you might have guessed it, what is the best advice that you've ever been given?
Those good questions. I've never
that's good. You got to think
about them. Yeah,
it's a reflection time.
Not sure if this is what I would classify as the best advice, but I think something that definitely pushed us, so me and the team and the founders and the whole company in a positive way is that you should not try to not be ambitious and just try and be ambitious, because if you don't even strive for something big, then you most certainly don't end up there, right? If you just think small all the time, you probably end up at a place that is something small. If you think quite ambitiously about things, maybe you don't reach the ambition you thought of, and maybe it seems a bit scary and far and unreachable and not tangible. But I think it helps you get your mindset in thinking about what really needs to happen if I would want to get there, and prioritize on those things and not get lost in the details. And I mean, you had a couple persons along the way that pushed us to be extremely ambitious, much more ambitious than we initially thought what Salonkee could become.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just helped you, jump again out of the comfort zone of say, okay, this is my comfort zone on how big it can be. But actually, if you think bigger, it can also be bigger, and you just have to be willing to embrace that and say, okay, let's be more ambitious, and then also you probably end up at a place that is better, or bigger than you might have thought, at least.
I love that. And the last question is for the aspiring creative entrepreneurs, our audience. What is the advice that you would like to leave them with?
I would say first of all, just get started. If it's something you're really passionate about, get started. Try and find something that really, or follow your passion and find something that you're passionate about, because at the end, working for 40 years for something that you don't really like, then you might ask real questions about work-life balance, because you don't really like what you do at work and you try to compensate it with your free time in life. But if you find something that you're really passionate about, I think it will just make your whole life just so much more enjoyable, because you like to get up in the morning. You don't wait for the next weekend because you just like also your day during the week. You feel like, or you can have an impact, and then you follow your passion, basically not just in the free time but also at work. So I would really say try and find your passion first of all, because mostly, and also for me at the beginning, you don't know what is actually your passion. What do you actually like? You don't really know. So try different things, see if you find something you're passionate about, and when you have that, follow that passion, and try. Of course, not maybe every passion is as easy to sort of turn that into a job, but somehow I would say just try and don't be afraid of following it.
I love that. I mean, I live by the same mentality, so I completely agree with that. But on that note, Tom, thank you so much for taken your time. I know that it is very valuable, and I know that we can do a lot of things in an hour or two. So I appreciate you very much for coming, and love this conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me. Really happy to support those kind of discussions, podcasts in Luxembourg, and hopefully motivating more people to follow also what you've done and follow the passion.
Thank you.